Call the meeting to order.
Jenkins?
Here.
Harden? Pond?
Here.
McKinley?
Here.
Pearl?
Here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have one presentation this evening, and that's from our Clinton Power Station. Brett, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to fix the screen here for a second. Looks like my Outlook notifications are coming up. Anyway, thanks for having me here tonight. Do you mind if I just address from back here?
That'd be fun.
Yeah. I just wanted to come here and talk a little bit about the plant. It's been in the news a lot lately, potentially about it closing down. So, and I also want to make a better effort at getting out here and educating Farmer City about what's been going on with the plant as well. I know that we probably haven't done that a whole lot in the past. So, I'd really like to learn more about the community. I've only been on the job about 8 months and find out what your needs are. So tonight, Larry and I, we took a drive to the park and on Route 4, right? And we talked about some of the needs there for a pedestrian overpass over the Salt Creek River. So, or Salt Creek, not river, huh? Anyway, so we're going to go back and talk about what potentially the company might be willing to do. And we might come out with an engineer and look at what something like that would cost and what benefit there would be. Maybe potentially put together a donation of some sort. So really hoping something like that can come to fruition. But more talk has to happen. So, a little bit about the plant. It is what we call economically challenged right now, and that's a nice way of saying it's not making money. And there's a whole host of reasons for that, and I'll go into that a little bit here in a few minutes. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do to make sure that the plant doesn't close. It's a relatively new nuclear power plant. It's only been going for 27 years, and it's got a 40-year license, and it could definitely get another 20 to 40 years out of it if it were to get its license extended. So it's a great operating plant. There are just some economic challenges that it's facing right now that may end up ultimately leading to it closing. So, but first I want to talk a little bit about Exelon. It is the largest competitive generator of power in the United States. And you can see that we have a big presence in Maryland, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. We also have the largest nuclear fleet in the United States. And speaking of that, this is where we have different nuclear power plants. You can see quite a few plants in the Northeast. We have 6 plants in Illinois. And then Exelon also operates Fort Calhoun in Nebraska, where we manage the operations out there. To the Illinois plants, there's 11 reactors, 6 different plants, and they produce 90% of the state's carbon-free energy. That's enough energy to provide electricity to 7 million Illinois residents. And this shows how Illinois gets its electricity right now. Nearly half of it is nuclear power, but then coal is also a very important part of how Illinois gets its power, and you can see to a lesser extent wind and natural gas too. So all the wind power that's out there, you see all the windmills on the side, as you're driving down the highway, it's doing about 5% of the energy in the state right now. And in terms of these 6 plants, they together inject $9 billion into Illinois' economy each year. They employ 5,900 workers, and in addition, they benefit other industries, to the tune of around 22,000 additional jobs exist because of these plants. And when we say that these jobs exist because these plants are in the community, to give you an example, Clinton Power Station in this local community, there's studies that show that in 2014 alone, it injected $700 million into the local and regional economy. So that there's a ripple effect there, you know. There's restaurants that can exist. There's gas stations that are more profitable because that plant's here and the people that it brings with it. So, you know, right now we're going through a refueling outage, and when we do that, we bring a lot of temporary workers to the plant, and that's where the 1,400 temporary workers come from. We have around 1,500 workers at our site right now helping us do maintenance activities during our outage. It's work that can be done when we're not online producing electricity, because there are certain things that you can't do when you're producing electricity. So that's what's happening now out at our plant today and for the next few weeks. And in addition to that, the 6 plants pay more than $290 million in state and local taxes. And just to give you a snapshot of that here locally, more than $9 million to the Clinton School District. That's over 50% of their operating budget. More than $2 million to the county. So that's, I think last I checked, it was around 19% of their budget. So putting a lot into the local economy through taxes as well. In terms of reliability, the plants are the most reliable form of energy in the United States. 91% of the time nuclear power plants are online, they're producing electricity. Ours are 96% reliable. With 14 plants, there's a lot of efficiencies that we have that we're able to perform a little bit better than the other plants in the United States. It's just something that happens from having 14 nuclear power plants. You learn things, and our outages tend to be shorter than those other companies that own nuclear plants. So in terms of reliability, it's a very good thing to have that power in the electric system all the time. And the power that's generated by these plants is carbon free, like I mentioned earlier. The 6 plants together prevent the release of 80 million metric tons of carbon dioxide each year. That's the equivalent of taking 15 million cars off the road. And so we have to start thinking about these plants as environmental assets. They're producing carbon-free power. That's something that the federal government has said there is a premium on. The government has said that Illinois has to reduce its carbon emissions by 30% by year 2030, and that's something that we're going to have to comply with probably in the next 5 or 6 years. So when you start talking about that, how are we going to meet that reduction of 30% from where we're at now? It's something that nuclear power has to be part of the solution. You can't be closing plants and end up meeting those types of new rules that are being put out there. So we need these plants to stick around just for that fact that the rules are changing, and reduced carbon emissions seems to be the future based on what the government is telling us and tipping towards us. So in terms of the environment, Exelon is committed. You can see some examples of what they've done at some other stations. You all know Clinton Lake really well, so you know that the company puts thousands of fish into that lake each year. They want that lake to be a boon for tourism, and the company does other things like what we're talking about with the pedestrian bridge and everything. We I think 2 years ago built a handicap accessible wheelchair fishing pier out at DeLand Weldon State Park. Stuff like that our company does, and we want to leave the communities where we do business in a better place than when we came here and started doing business. Our people, you can see this big 1.8 million. They gave $1.8 million to charity last year through United Way Giving, and Exelon does give to a lot of community organizations, more than 400 of them. And despite all these good things, there are some challenges that are causing our plant to not make money, the Clinton Power Station plant. And the biggest one is natural gas. It's the process known as fracking has really flooded the market with gas, and it has impacted all kinds of wholesale power prices. Natural gas is readily available right now, and it's something that has made our energy bills lower, but at the same token, it's definitely impacted nuclear power plants. They're not able to be cost effective now because of natural gas. Another thing that really negatively impacts the nuclear plants is some counterproductive energy policies. And what I'm talking about there are policies that reward wind and solar for producing carbon-free energy, but do not give that same consideration to nuclear power. So, and then also transmission constraints. That is something that affects the Clinton plant specifically. The Clinton plant is in what is known as the MISO transition organization, and the MISO, it provides energy to all of the homes in Illinois south of I-80 and eastward into 14 states, eastward and southern. So those states are rich in wind, and when we talk about the federal subsidies, we're not competing on a level playing field with wind when it comes to selling our power. Wind is getting to sell its power, make money, and then nuclear gets to come in and it's not making a lot of money because of the gas, because of the wind in the transmission organization that we have to do business in. So it's one thing that does affect Clinton Power Station in a way that it doesn't, that the other plants aren't affected. And it might be why you've heard Clinton Power Station in terms of one of the ones that might end up closing. It's because it's in this transmission organization that presents its own challenges. So when we started talking about closing down the Clinton plant about a year and a half ago, the state reacted. They passed House Resolution 1146. They wanted there to be a study on what would happen if the plants closed down, and the state directed 4 state agencies to prepare a report detailing the impact of the plant shutting down and what that impact would be on the new carbon rules that are coming out. So, you know, what the report found is that there needs to be, you know, some sort of solution, a solution that recognizes nuclear power for the zero carbon emissions that it produces, a solution that recognizes the reliability nuclear power provides to the electric system, and also, you know, just nuclear power needs to be able to compete on a level playing field with wind and solar and other forms of carbon-free power that are out there. So I've heard people refer to this legislation that has been proposed as a bailout. It's not a bailout. We just want to be able to compete in the market the same way that wind and solar compete. And that's where this legislation does come in. It's called the Low Carbon Portfolio Standard. It would make Illinois the top state in the nation in terms of having reduced carbon emissions. And in doing that, the way that it would do that is it would require Illinois to obtain at least 70% of its electricity from low carbon sources. So when we talk about low carbon, we're talking about wind and hydro, even clean coal, but also nuclear as well. We'd all be competing on a level playing field. And the main way that it would do that is it would require ComEd and Ameren, the 2 biggest utilities in the state, to purchase 70% of their power. So this is something that would have benefit. It would allow us to keep the nuclear plants open that are challenged, including Clinton. There'd be a small cost to this. It would be roughly $2 a month on your average residential utility bill. And I mean, I understand nobody wants to see their utility bills rise, but they are going to rise astronomically if we can't meet the reduced carbon emissions that the EPA is mandating by the year 2030. So this is a small cost to pay in order to not have to pay costs in the future by allowing us to protect these nuclear plants. So in the legislation, it would act as a bridge to the point where Illinois would then be able to comply with the new EPA rules. This legislation would expire either on the later of these 2 dates, December 31st, 2021, or the effective date of the implementation of Illinois' response to Section 111D of the Clean Air Act, which is the EPA rule of reducing carbon emissions by 30%. So that's where, you know, it comes to what we ask you to do to help us. We're just trying to educate people on the issues. We're trying to get this bill passed in the state legislature right now. In 2 days, we're going to send a group down to Springfield, and they're going to have a rally to support the legislation. So we're hoping that makes a difference. We also have a website called nuclearpowersillinois.com. You can go out there, you can learn more about the impacts of closing the nuclear plants, and you could also sign up and sign. It's essentially like signing a petition. You provide your name, your email address, and phone number, and it just says that you're a supporter of nuclear power and of Clinton Power Station. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to take those now.
It'd be nice to get some of that tax money that's going on that side of the county come over to us.
Yeah, well, understood. I think the city of Clinton would say the same thing too. So
Personally, they've had it handed to them for a long time over there.
understood. Understood.
Any questions?
Is that it?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for having me. Appreciate it. I'm just gonna pack all this stuff up and get it out of your way now.
And the next thing on our agenda is a presentation. Pat Pearl from the City Council, the City of Palmer City. We got you a shiny plaque. In appreciation of your 4 years of service here at the City Council, person, your picture. Got it. Pat, thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure serving with you, sir. With no public comments on the agenda items, we move to section 1, the consent agenda.
Make a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Call it.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McKinley,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
motion carried.
There being no unfinished business, so entertain a motion to adjourn. The first one. Yeah.
Just don't second late, sir.
Call it.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McKinley,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
motion carried.
Pat, thank you, sir. Been a pleasure. Be good. I'll see you across the street.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Bathroom door.
Be good, Pat.
I thought that's where it's already been hanging.
See you back.
Ugh.